Of course, good evening, everyone. As I told you guys this evening, we have author Mark Jacobson with me this tonight, and then Bandit and Kaytlyn have joined me. Kaytlyn, it's good to see you. I'm glad you could be with us this evening. And I know you've been kind of MIA, but hey, life is how it goes sometimes. So thank you for being able to join us tonight.
Oh yeah, thank you for having me.
Bandit, what's going on up there tonight, bud? I'm glad you made it on
Man,
time. Like, look at
yeah.
you.
Looking forward to it. Looking forward
Awesome.
to it, man. Looking
Awesome.
forward to it.
Well, well, Mark, if that you don't mind, that's what I call you.
It's okay.
You,
It's my
I
name. You can call me
awesome.
that.
For in reality, I would
I mean, do you
probably
want me
like
to
I
come
have.
up with some name like Duke or Count
Well,
Basie? It's like,
well,
you
when we
guys
were
only have
talking,
one name. Huh?
I was calling you Mr. Jacobson, and that's just, I
Well,
guess
that
it's just
was, I
that's
just,
my
I
reason.
didn't even pay attention to that, man. So,
I
I would have
let that
called
go
you the same
by.
thing.
right,
Okay, this guy's from the South. That's what they say.
hmm
Yeah,
Yep.
I run into that. My mama told me to always have manners and to please and thank
Good
you
that
and
matters.
the Mister and Mrs. and all that good stuff. I don't understand why
It
folks
goes a
lost
long
that.
way, man. It goes a long way. It definitely
That's
does.
definitely been something that's been lost over a period of time here recently.
Oh, for
That is
sure.
Yeah.
true. That is true. Although people don't want to mistake good manners for actually being nice.
Right.
That's not necessarily the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Understand. Yeah, and I actually discovered Mark because we had a guest the other week, William Ramsey, and after I had finished talking with William, he had made mention of one of Mark's books, and then I went and actually found a podcast that they had done together and was like, I would love to speak with this fella, and that's why I worked my magic and got him over here to join us this evening. So I do appreciate you being generous enough to come over here and have a chat with us. I see that you're still quite a busy man. It says that you're still active in editing on things out there. So,
Well, yes, I'm still vertical. I am.
well, that's always a good sign, though. Hey, I mean, and I, I always love
Oh,
talking to
it's a
people.
horizontal? Yeah, absolutely.
I always love talking to people that have been on this kind of journey longer than me. I've been pushing for the truth and all kinds of weird things for a really long time. And of course, you're someone that was probably doing it when I was figuring out how to walk. So, it's it's a pleasure for me personally to always speak with, I guess, what you would consider elders. People that have been seeing reality for what it is a lot longer than the rest of us have, and
Yeah.
they're always full of great knowledge. And that's why I was just like,
hmm
man, like this is going to be, my kind of conversation. So,
Yeah.
Well, I hope I won't let you down here, man.
well,
So
fantastic,
it's a big
fantastic.
buildup.
No, but you're right. I mean, I remember when I discovered Sherry Shriner, and she blew my mind. I mean, and that this was her content being put out like 20 years ago.
Well,
So,
the
I
first,
guess
I don't think I'm in
I'm
the
the
same bag as Sherry Shiner, but go ahead.
I'm the baby in the boat with this kind of stuff. I've only been doing this for 5 years now. I've kind of
hmm
just been, going for, trying to wake people up to what's really going on for, and before that 5 years, I was, to put it nicely, I was politically involved. I was, I wasn't aware of like, well, I
yeah.
think I was aware, but I called everybody, oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist. And they would never do something like that. But
well,
yeah.
and
No.
that's what's piqued my interest is one of my all-time favorite people, to reference and stuff and whatnot is Bill Cooper. And the first book that I'd run across that I had seen from you from that William was talking about was your Horse Rider, which was kind of like another book that you had written,
Yeah,
after the fact. And that I was just like, whoa, this is somebody else that is, seeing things for what they really are. And
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, your name sounds very familiar to me. I'm sure I've run across. something that you've
Well,
written
that
at
was
some
when,
point in time.
see, when I spoke to him, he was like, "You should also check out my other book," and you said that I needed to go check out the
There are
Lampshade.
plenty of books. I just sent
Yes,
you
there you have
one.
so many. Oh yeah, that's very true. You have written quite a few books, quite a few stories I've seen on there that there was more than I was aware of, and I guess you have time with that. You know, you've been around long enough to write quite a few of them. And when I started thumbing through that Lampshade one, that was I found that interesting because it's kind of, in a sense, it's kind of gruesome, but at the same time, it's extremely a plausible reality. I mean, we see the things that do go on a daily basis, and I know that they try to say that it was debunked or whatever, but I'm the kind of guy that always holds out that hope because you can never trust the people in charge, regardless of who they are.
There are debunkers and there are debunkers. I mean, people that just debunk things. That's what they do.
Sure.
It doesn't make it. They have no. Their goal is to tell you you're full of crap. So, like,
They get paid.
Can you curse on this show, by the way?
Yes, sir.
Oh yeah, we're yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir. We're a bunch of sailors.
The ground was, can you say fuck or not? I mean, it's okay. All right.
They get paid to debunk, and when I say paid to debunk something, they get paid to say a specific, answer to that. You know what I mean?
Right. They'll take something out of context.
Oh,
and make the whole thing. They'll say the whole thing is false because this one little part wasn't exactly right. It was off.
Or they'll just outright lie.
Or
they'll just outright lie and say,
yeah.
Well, I don't know, man. I don't want to sell you a bill of goods here or anything like that, but I mean, actually, I'm a member of the mainstream media, the hated mainstream media.
Sure.
So, like, I've written for every magazine, like, in the mainstream. So, and including for the New York Times. So, I have outlier views, but I took a vow when I was about 17 or 18 years old that I was never going to work 9 to 5, ever. So this was a great job to be a writer, to avoid working 9 to 5.
And so you do. But I guess writing for all these magazines and stuff like that, you've probably seen the big shift in journalism itself. At one point in time, journalism was an actual thing out there seeking truth and stuff like that. And I know nowadays there's so much there's just so much silly stuff that goes on in the news alone.
You can sum it up in one word: the internet. That's 2 words. Mm-hmm. But but I mean, that's really, I've been writing for a living since 1972. That's that's more than a half a century. It's kind of bizarre. Mm-hmm. I never made any money doing anything else. This is what I do. And I managed to put 3 kids through college and all that crap. So, like, but the thing is that things were changing all the time, but it was only after the invention of the internet that things got untenable for me as a writer. I couldn't work anymore. I stopped.
Right.
Because it didn't make any sense to me first of all, one of the first things that the internet did to people that were actually trying to be honest journalists, whatever you want to call it, just work for a long time on a story and try to get the real truth of it, or at least your version of the truth, or try to say something that was intelligent that hadn't been said 1,000 times before. It's a lot of work, and it costs, and you should get paid. I mean, you should get paid a reasonable amount of money. So the first thing the internet did that I noticed for the first time was that a piece that I used to write, like for Rolling Stone or something like that, or be like 20,000 words, 15,000 words, is a long story. And that was just the way it was done. And they give you like, $20,000, which it took you 3 or 4 months to do it. So it wasn't that really, you weren't getting overpaid necessarily because you were doing something very few people could do. And, but so as soon as things began to get normalized in the internet, I would notice I would come up with the same piece that used to be worth $15,000 was now $500. So if you're going to, then you cannot work hard for $500. You just can't do it. So the thing is that you've gotten this whole bunch of people who are actually experienced, who've done a lot of this stuff. I'm not copping an age thing, but it's just there's a lot of experiential kind of stuff, and that goes into finding out what's really the truth, or at least something that isn't just something that they're trying to make you believe. So, but once you make it impossible to make a living doing that, I mean, I respect you guys totally, because at least you're out there trying to do something. But I mean, most people my age just quit. And so therefore you lost, and I'm not trying to make a big case about how wonderful we were, but the thing is, like, you lost all these experienced people, and nobody ever talks about that,
And
journalism.
Why the mainstream news sucks. I mean, they have people doing it that just suck.
Yeah, well, you're talking about there was a time in the late 90s to early 2000s where, written journalistic pieces for magazines, newspapers, whatever, took a nosedive right off a cliff. It was like the late 90s, early 2000s when everything
you can look at the line it up against the rise of the internet. Really, the internet as a conspiracy, a vehicle, really takes off after 9/11. That's the first pure internet conspiracy discussion.
You guys.
No one call it theory. I mean, it's a discussion. This is a discussion.
It's definitely a conspiracy. I don't even think it's a theory. It's definitely.
Well, I'll tell you, I was there that day. I was there.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's a problem is, I'll tell you what really happened to those buildings, in my opinion. They weren't built to code. It's very simple. It's a simple thing. I mean, but you need to spend a little time to find out this thing, that those buildings were built by the Port Authority, which means, I don't know, you see in New York, people know about this, but the Port Authority was an interstate thing that has no building codes. They just do whatever they want. They're a separate organization. You ever hear of a guy named Robert Moses?
Mm-hmm.
I believe I have.
It's a book called The Power Broker, and it's a very interesting book if you want to learn about how people control stuff. And so they built these buildings, and they weren't built to either New Jersey code or New York code. So therefore, when they got hit by airplanes or blown up from below, whatever story you happen to believe in, they fell down.
Right.
So that's not very sexy to say that the building codes brought down the buildings, but
also that it's like
what happened, because they still died. People still died.
If you ask people how many buildings came down that day, you're still going to get a vast majority of people that still only say 2 buildings came down that day.
Building number 7 standing right there. One building number 7.
Yeah.
And right there. I mean, almost hit me in the head.
People will tell you straight to your face, like Building 7 was the most obvious controlled demolition that you can ever witness on TV.
Yeah.
Well,
but buildings standing right next to them.
That people watch on TV. I don't know. I talked to this guy, Samir. They put out this test. This long one of these books that they do after something like that happens. By the NST, the National something, I don't know. It's the official whatever it is. So I went to a lecture by this guy, Samir, I can't remember his last name. So I looked through the whole thing. It's about 1,000 pages long. I said, well, what about building number 7? You didn't mention anything about that. And he says, well, I'll tell you, just between you and me, we never could figure out building number 7. I mean, these are the guys that were supposedly in charge. There were all these fancy engineers that went to Harvard and Yale, So
talking about the NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board.
That's exactly who I'm talking about.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
That's exactly who it is.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
That was the day that the book came out, and they had a press conference, and I went there, because I was working for New York Magazine at the time, and it was very, I'm like a guy, that you expect to have there. So, so he was willing to talk to me which was already bullshit in a way, because why should he necessarily talk to me just because I have a press pass? So like, he could talk to everybody else too. But, he's a bureaucrat. He doesn't have any time to do that. So he knows he has to talk to the press. So he talks to the press. And that's why it's very important to have people at the press that actually know that don't have a particular agenda, one way or the other. So, because that's the person that these people in power are going to talk to. So once you destroy the press, which I think is probably one of the things that has been kind of a problem with the so-called conspiracy movement. I mean, they're undermining these journalists, people who actually are trying their best to do their job. I know that may not matter to a lot of people, but actually most of these people that work at the New York Times, I mean, I know them, and they're not working for George Soros or, whoever you might want to bring up.
Right. Not all of them.
They're hardworking people,
Yeah.
You are right, but they're overshadowed by
the people that do.
They're overshadowed by the ones that they choose to put in the spotlight and pay large sums of money to say whatever they're paid to say. They're just the political mouthpieces that are put on, TV or the to write the big articles for the magazine. But I know what you're saying. You do have these quality journalists.
For the most part, they're honest people who are not bent. I mean, they're trying their best, and just to blanketly dismiss this kind of information, I think is kind of short-sighted to me. I'm just telling you from my experience. That's all.
Oh no, you've got the experience that we should probably listen to.
Well, I don't know. Some people, I know a lot of old people that don't know anything. I forgot half the stuff I did know. I'm just trying to make sure that I forget only the stupid shit. I want to keep this, but somehow you don't have control over that. I'll tell you.
That's what you hope to do.
You'll find out. It's like
And I think that like the conspiracy theory word has like a really bad rap. A lot of people think that it means that we think it didn't happen at all. Like it wasn't real at all. And that is not what we're saying. It happened. It definitely happened. It was tragic. It just didn't happen the way we were told it happened.
Well, you've got this situation where it's really a big problem. That's the reason why I wrote that book, actually, because, like why should I believe anything that these people say? I mean, you have to have a good critique of capitalism to be able to understand why you shouldn't believe what they say, because they're trying to sell you something like everybody is, right? It's not just, I mean, a guy who runs a shoe store, if there was such a person anymore, would be trying to sell you shoes. These people are trying to sell you information and that kind of thing. And, that's a problem. So, but it's just, it's gotten a lot worse over the past couple of years with the onset of MSNBC and Fox News. That is just like the end of the world for people that are trying to be, I mean, the two of them together should just go off a cliff, but, because I got to tell you,
and that's more of the
New York. I'm a liberal, right? So I would agree with most of the stuff is on MSNBC more than Fox.
Entertainment.
It's entertainment. You're right. It's exactly what it is. People want to get told what they already believe, and that is what these people do. I mean, sometimes I put on Fox and I go like, what universe are these people talking about? I mean, where do they come from and why do they believe this stuff? And I'm sure that people from the other side listen to MSNBC. They think the same thing, So, it's just not.
I really think those that's more of the ones like Bandit's talking about, like your Foxes and your MSNBC.
Oh,
how they're so politically charged and leaned. You know what I'm saying? That if you do watch it from the other side, you're like, what in the hell is going on here? And you got folks like me that are watching.
I never even heard of Hunter Biden's backpack or laptop or whatever the fuck it was before I started watching Fox News. I mean, the things that I was reading didn't have, that wasn't the fate of the universe, wasn't depending on this one thing, but, once you, move over to the other sources, then you begin, it's like sort of like if you don't know Spanish, you don't know Spanish, you know, you're not going to understand anything they say. So that's why it's good to learn Spanish. So you can find out what they say. So, but, you know, it's kind of an interesting thing because I think that the conspiracy movement, if you don't mind me spouting off a little bit, I think the conspiracy movement is in a currently people. See, I've been following this stuff basically since the Kennedy assassination. You know, here you got, that's really the beginning for a lot of people. And you've got the crime of the century. I mean, the crime of the century, right? I mean, what other thing would, I mean, the 20th century had a lot of criminality. But, you know, the single murder of the century was this one guy who happened to be the president of the United States, right? And he gets shot in full view of, you know, hundreds of people that are standing right next to it. And the fact most people believe it was on TV, but it was not on TV, you know? I mean, people had this idea that it was on TV and everybody watched it, but that's not really. So, but anyway, there was certainly a lot of eyewitnesses there and all this extra stuff and the Warren report and all this stuff like that. And still, what is it now? 60 years later? It's going to be 60 years later. Yeah, this year, 60 years, right? Still nobody knows what happened. So like the thing is like nobody knows what happened. So you've got the murder of the most important guy on earth in plain sight of everybody, and still nobody knows what happens because I mean you can go walk around and you won't find very many people that are going to think that. Well, you know, you're not going to find very many people that are going to believe what the Warren report said, which was like Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. You know, you're just not going to find that. But on the other hand, most of these conspiracy theories that came up about it don't really stand up either. So, you know, and once you begin to like really look at them, you know, so it's, there's a mystery about that. That's once you begin to understand this kind of idea that there's no answer. This is a formidable moment in your, for me anyhow, in the idea that somebody who believe really pretty fervently that if you keep on working, you would get to the right answer and you'd find out what the real truth was. But somehow the real truth is it's just not there. You know, it's a mystery. That's why they call it a mystery. So, because nobody knows. Did Jesus Christ return on the third day? Well, we just don't know, you know, but a lot of people believe it. So, you know, it's just, it's interesting. So I think that to get to the point, I was trying to make is I think that conspiracy, especially, and I wrote a whole book about this, so I thought a lot about it. But the thing is that I feel that a lot of people, you know, conspiracy people that started with the Kennedy assassination, they were there to try to say something that other people were not saying. You know, that this was like a contrary point of view because, you know, we're not going for that. And it's just as possible that X, Y, and Z happened as what you claim happened, because certainly nobody believes the stuff about the bullet, you know? So, on the other hand, now I feel that conspiracy has come to the point where it's just an orthodoxy like anything else. If you don't believe that we never went to the moon, you must be crazy, right? Like,
right. You know, you've got a lot.
Yeah, man.
You know, there's, I try to point this out from time to time because I've come across some people that I think too passionately, you know, like they believe like a conspiracy type thing. And, you know, you've got to be careful, I believe, in the conspiracy world because you've got a lot of counter conspiracy type stuff. You know, like you've got things that I feel from my perspective are straight put out there to intentionally, you know, like kind of mock people or to put people into a different direction and stuff, and to make people that think outside the box, you know, look kind of ridiculous.
The moon landing is another one of those things where it happened, it just didn't happen the way they said it did, you know?
Do you mind me asking you, how do you think it happened?
How do I think it happened?
Yeah,
I don't know.
What do you believe about that particular incident? You know,
it definitely did not happen in 1969 the way they said it did. But I think it did happen later on, and I think it's happened lots of times since then. and we just aren't told about it.
There's just too much evidence pointing to that that it didn't happen in 19. I mean, you can't believe that, they all of a sudden lost all the tapes, all of the footage, all of the phone call from Nixon to the moon using a landline, the camera that was already on the surface when Aldrin stepped off. Just, you can't. There's just no way. They've looked at the actual pictures and the video footage of the light and where it was coming from and how it hit the surface of the moon, that it was just like, this was done at a studio at that time.
Do you think it's Stanley Kubrick really shot the footage or something like that? Is that what you said?
That's very possible. That's very, very possible. But
later on,
that's part of the we didn't go to the moon thing. As Stanley Kubrick shot the footage when he was making 2001 or something like that. So, but I personally don't believe that.
I'm right there with Kaytlyn on that. I think that initial one was just America trying to beat Russia.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Has it happened since then?
Oh yeah,
probably.
I think so.
More than likely. Has it happened since then? But did it happen in 1969? I don't. I strongly believe that version didn't.
At least not the televised version.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there these things? I mean, I don't know. I mean, one of the things that I find to be frustrating about, I don't call it conspiracy. I call it parapolitics. It's just another way of looking at politics, It's like conspiracy is a pejorative word that if I'm going to be on that side, I don't want to put myself, behind the starting line right away,
Right.
I want to give myself a chance to win the argument. So the thing is that, it just, what was I going to say? I can't remember. That's another thing that happens when you get older. What the fuck?
Actually, that's what happened to me all day. I think it's just today.
Where are you living? They have legal pot there?
Well, it's decriminalized, not legal, but
I'd rather decriminalization than legalize. And legalize means that you do what we say, or decriminalize is a better step, actually.
I'm still in a state that they'll probably shoot you on the side of the road if you haven't. So
where you live in Texas,
Georgia?
Georgia.
Georgia. Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's just like. All my life I was growing up, because of the civil rights stuff and all that kind of stuff, we were against states' rights, So now I'm thinking wow, states' rights is the only thing that's going to save my ass here, because I don't want to be the Supreme Court is making these kind of decisions. And, these people are in the Congress. I mean, I'm not really that for that. I'd rather just stay home, right? I mean, New York City is like my home, and that's where I understand what the world is like, from this world.
One of our co-hosts lives up there, actually, that couldn't join us this evening. He's
it's a zone. I'm not saying it's people know what's going on, but we have a certain way of looking at things,
Sure.
Yeah.
No,
my aunt, she lived there for 10 years. She was there when the planes hit. She lived there then.
Yeah, it was a really scary and very upsetting time. But then by 2 weeks later, people in New York, I mean, they got to go to work, right? So,
right. She was walking on her way to work. I'm sorry, Jim Bob.
No, you're good. We just had that big destruction down here with all those tornadoes, and yeah, you're right.
So hey, man, Jim Bob, what do you think happened to the Georgia Guidestones?
My perspective on that is that clearly somebody blew it up, but everybody wants to go it was either somebody that was like a vigilante or something, but I think that there was more to the destruction of it. They kind of wanted to erase it because it has so much controversial stuff on it that does spur up a lot of nonsense.
It kind of seemed like a message to me.
And the fact that
I was living in Atlanta, I drove all the way out of my way to look at it.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to see it. Yeah.
We
we drove over there.
I guess my biggest question with that is where's the time capsule?
That's a good one. Was there supposed to be a time?
Mm-hmm.
There was
there was a time
supposed to be a
capsule
time
underneath.
capsule.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
But
Well,
what they ended up saying was there was a copy of
They made jokes instead.
yeah, it was a like 5,000 Quaaludes
Mhm.
and a copy of a Playboy from the 70s or something.
somehow, I mean, you can't believe everything you hear.
But
Man.
5,000 Quaaludes, man, holy crap!
Yeah, the Quaaludes
I'll
are hard to
destroy
find
some
these days,
things
man.
just to try Quaaludes.
5,000, you could make a killing with 5,000, man.
Yeah, man, that's probably the world's biggest cache of Quaaludes. Quaaludes were outlawed, I don't know, sometime during the 90s,
It was,
People in
yeah, it
my
was in the
generation
80s.
have never even seen one. I have no idea what it
Well,
looks like.
they used to be called 714 because they said, it's like sometimes you see a pill, it'll say have a number on it. So 714, it was like, hey, you got any 714? And it's kind of a weird coincidence because you ever watch Dragnet?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Old TV show.
What was the police call? Wasn't there a Adam code for 714?
Yeah, no, this is
Code 714
This
or
is
something.
taken from Dragnet because Dragnet was one of the first cop shows that were ever on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe Friday, the guy that said "Just the facts, ma'am, just the facts," was a famous thing, and also that famous song "Dun dun 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 dun," which you probably have heard, right? And but his badge was badge. Usually, it was before it was called Dragnet. It was called Badge 714.
Wait a minute. Was Dragnet was before Adam 12?
Way before that. Adam 12 was until when is that? Dragnet is from the 50s.
No idea what you're talking about.
Oh, it's all right. That I recall watching it in rerun form. That was
Yeah, the reruns.
TBS days. We had when I was growing up, we didn't have but an antenna and a few channels, and we'd have TBS, and they played all the reruns of all the stuff from everything.
That stuff doesn't look that bad
Griffith.
compared to the regular TV shows these days. I watch Perry Mason all the time.
I think I was probably watching Hey Arthur back then. So.
Well,
I mean, I'll
people can date themselves by what TV shows they used to watch when they were kids, So
I've always been a Western. Like I grew up watching a lot of the old Westerns.
Oh my God, man.
Yeah.
Like John Wayne.
Because my grandpa.
My grandfather was big
Dances with
into
wolves. Yeah.
they had I'm your grandpa age. It was Saturday night was the great Western night. CBS.
Mm-hmm.
CBS, I think at 9:00 they had some Western. At 9:30 they had Have Gun Will Travel, which was my favorite one because they used to have a little. He'd see his card because he was a bounty hunter basically, and it said Have Gun Will Travel. and then after that was Gunsmoke.
Gunsmoke.
Oh,
I
that was
remember
one of
watching
my-
that.
They still run that one, Gunsmoke.
That was one my grandpa always watched.
Gunsmoke. Yeah, it was incredible. It was as popular. It was the Super Bowl of its day.
And then they watched Lonesome Dove.
And Green Acres.
So that's
and
Green Acres was around then. Lonesome Dove was later though.
I also grew up watching a lot of Little House on the Prairie and
that too.
Andy Griffith Show, and that was those were normals for me growing up. Like that was.
He is a cousin of mine, by the way. Andy Griffith,
Andy Griffith's a cousin of yours?
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever see? You should see this movie he's in called Face in the Crowd.
I've never seen it. I will though.
Look it up. Look it up. Face in the Crowd. Andy Griffith plays this politician who takes over the United States. He plays a country singer. Country singer who takes over, who becomes like the biggest thing, Donald Trump's times 10. So, you should watch it. It's very.
I know he also played in a movie.
Conspiracy element in it, really.
Yeah.
I know he also played in a movie that the murder in Coweta County.
I don't know about that.
Well,
you just used to watch him as the sheriff from Mayberry,
Yeah.
But actually, he was a hard-nosed dude, I think.
It was one of his first. It was one of his first like lawyer type roles that ended up kind of leading into him becoming Matlock.
Matlock, yeah.
And he there was this murder that happened in Coweta County, Georgia, and it was a dude had killed a black man and put him down in the well and stuff like this. And
Really?
supposedly it was over a cow and all this kind of stuff. And the dude was
It was a real
well,
case.
yeah, it was the dude was well in like the political scene and stuff of that county or whatever. Well, it turns out that it's my wife's great grandfather
Really?
that was the guy that did it. And
Really?
yeah, and like we got to talking about something one day and she was like, oh yeah, she's like, that's my family. And I'm just like, wait, what? And she was like, yeah. I was just like, wait, on which side is your family? She's like, the side that did the murdering. And I'm like, oh shit.
Well, that's
Listen, guys, I gotta go get my kids in the bed. But
Hey,
it's
Caitlin,
so
I appreciate
nice
you
to
joining
meet
us
you,
this evening.
Mark.
all right. Nice to see you. Nice to
Yeah.
meet you. Nice to meet you. But definitely find that movie.
I will. I would definitely will.
Based
Jamal,
in
I'll
the-
talk to
based
you
in the
later,
crowd.
Bandit. I'll talk to
Based
you
in the
later.
crowd. Okay.
Based in the crowd. Okay. I
Good
remember.
night,
If
Caitlin.
not,
Thank you
I'm sure
again.
my grandpa will know.
Okay.
There you go.
All
And
right.
See you.
and Mark, there's digging through some of your other books in here. I see that you are, behind the American Gangster and Other Tales. That's also you.
Yeah, that's me. I mean, I wrote the story that the movie was based on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that
I also
That was a
wrote the
good
story
movie. That was a good movie, by the way.
that was a really good
That was a
movie.
good
Actually, I didn't like the movie that much.
No?
I knew too much. Sometimes if you know what the real story is,
Sure.
fictional story, it doesn't really come up to it. Sometimes it's the other way around. But
Was there any
I also
basis?
wrote the story that the TV show Taxi is based on.
I'm sorry, what, you wrote the story for Taxi?
I wrote the
Is that what you said?
original piece. I was a cab driver in New York City. I wrote this article, and they made it into that TV show.
Wow, that's massively impressive, actually. Like,
Isn't that how was it Andy Kaufman was on that?
Andy Kaufman, that was his first big role. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was
And,
a stand-up
oh my-
comedian. He was a stand-up comedian that played at places like it was called Catch a Rising Star and the Improv.
Yeah.
And he was just a real funny stand-up comedian, real off the wall, and that's how he got the gig.
Yeah. He was off the wall to say the least. Yeah.
He was funny.
But,
I mean, he was funny, man. He used to go.
Oh yeah. Don't get me wrong. That was
funny, man.
yeah.
He used to say, I used to go see. I like to go watch stand. I don't watch him anymore because I don't get the jokes because everything
Who
is.
else was?
But
Who
he
else was
saying-
on that show?
Well,
Taxi. It was Andy Kaufman and there was
see, the original one, Danny DeVito was in.
Yep.
It was
yes,
Danny,
that was what I was going for. It was, it was
Danny
Danny DeVito.
Danny DeVito got that job because of me. I think. Because
Nice.
the guy, I took those guys that made the movie, the guys that made the
Mhm.
show, James L. Brooks, who later became an interesting person for you, maybe, because he's the guy that made broadcast news and a bunch of other stuff that really kind of locked in the idea of what the news media was supposed to be like. And he was the producer of that show because they worked for this thing called Mary Tyler Moore.
Mhm.
Who, yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
Mary Tyler
And-
Moore, and then so they did that, and then they wanted me to go take them to the garage where I was driving. Let me get rid of this guy.
Oh, he's getting a phone call.
There was this little stubby little guy who was the dispatcher. You go in and you give your hack license to the little guy. He was a mean motherfucker, and that's how they must have looked for somebody like him. They got him.
No, that's actually amazing. That it's based there.
He's a real
my-
happened.
That happens from time to time on my end. I do apologize. A little bit of internet trouble.
Well, I mean, the guy, what was his name? Tony somebody?
Tony
I can't
Danza?
remember.
Or no,
Yeah, he was not a nice person.
Yeah.
But Danny DeVito was a very nice person.
I've always
Because I actually met them on the set, so they thought, oh, here's the guy that wrote the story. We can't. They immediately it's the same thing because you know the truth. You don't know what the script says, so they're already nervous about it, because you're going to say, no, that's not the way that really happened. No. So,
And so you were,
it's
and
almost
I guess you kind of based a lot of that writing off of experiences out there driving.
Yeah, I was driving a taxi cab in New York City. I mean, back in 1972, 1970, 71. This is when the city was, the city was about to go bankrupt. I mean, it was incredible. It was before they built the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
Not before it was knocked down, So, it was just sort of so when I finally started getting jobs as a writer, the guy who was the editor of the place I was working said, "You used to drive a taxi?" I said, "I still drive a taxi," because I wasn't really making enough money as a writer. So I still would drive every so often. And he said, "Well, you got to write a story about that." I said, "Nah, man, and I don't want to do it." And he made me do it, and it was a good thing. Turns out the editors are sometimes right, Are we still on?
Hmm?
Yes, yeah, we're still here. I guess we're just having a little bit of a freeze problem.
I was out there from
Jimmy's frozen.
Keep going.
Usually it's me with internet trouble.
He's frozen. The captain. Where are you from, Bandit?
Kentucky.
You're in Kentucky?
Yep, Central
Really?
Kentucky. Central.
Those weird toys and stuff like that.
I apologize
Yeah,
again.
here
No, you're
so
suffering from my internet issues.
And it says I got full bars, so it's just acting up. So I really have no idea why it's acting up. But I mean, this has been, that's a bonus. Like I didn't realize that you were actually behind Taxi. Like that is just.
I'm not really behind it.
I mean,
they based the thing on my story, but I mean, once.
But they would have never had that idea if you
first.
probably wouldn't have wrote the story, though. That's
Yeah.
Well, that's probably true, and I did get, in the former world, they called me up and said, like, I said, I'm not getting as much money as I was supposed to get. I talked to a lawyer, and they said, we could have just ripped you off. We didn't have to give you anything. So I said, well, yeah, but you did give me something, so now I want to be treated fairly. So, but it was kind of interesting. It was fun to be on this set there with those guys a little bit, because I was a young guy. I was like 24 or something like that.
So are you done? Like, are you done writing pieces for, are you done writing articles? Pieces. Are you current?
I'm pretty much done writing pieces because, I can't write pieces for people. I'm looking across a table and the editor is half my age or less, and we're not living in the same world. I don't know anything about like who's on TV. I haven't seen if there were 10 movies that are nominated for the Academy Award this year. Even though I'm a member of the Screenwriters Guild and I get them all for free, I've never seen any of them. I have no desire to see them.
Yeah, I have. And that is true, too.
You're right on the cusp. If you're 40, you're going to begin to notice that you don't know what's supposedly going on.
I don't. I really don't. I don't know, I don't know what's big in the music world. I don't know what's big on in the movie world, the TV world. I sort of get like what's big. I'm on that era where we grew up with the very beginning of video games. So that is like what I pay attention to that sort of, only because my kids are getting involved with that. So I feel like I got to do it as a dad.
Like people tend to stay where they.
I don't even know who's going to the Super Bowl this year. I gave up on sports, man.
I don't think they figured that out yet. I think, but I mean, it's like, yeah, good. I still listen to I still follow the New York Knickerbockers.
Good one with that, yeah.
Because I'm like, imprinted on the New York Knickerbockers. I've been following them my whole life, but I
Do
mean, most
you?
of the stuff I don't pay attention because the thing is that like I don't want to be taken advantage of. I
Oh,
don't want
I got
I
you.
don't want to go to a stupid game and pay $150 for a lousy seat. And,
Are you
and
writing like independently? Do you have like an online forum
yeah,
where
I'm
you put
doing,
out your?
yeah, I'm launching a website in the next couple of months that's going to have my stuff on it. So,
Nice. Keep Jimmy up to date, and he'll keep me up to date because I try to keep.
yeah.
That's where, like, people that we meet on this show that have experience, like they're launching their own websites, they're
Well,
writing
you got
articles, or
the only
they're
thing you can do, it's like self-defense,
yeah.
I don't want to, I mean, like I tell you, the suggestions that I would have for pieces. See, I had a really good editor for a long. This is how it works, really. I worked in New York Magazine for I don't know 20 years or something, and I published tons of articles there. And then my editor, he died. Like he had the outrageousness to died, right? So the people that they replaced him with were half my age, and I couldn't do that anymore. I couldn't sell the stories.
Yeah, I mean, and especially, I guess, coming from a whole new perspective and such, like you made mention earlier, you about being in like the liberal kind of world, and the liberal world that I guess you would have grown up in compared to the liberal world today are definitely
Oh
kind of
yeah,
two.
it's true. I mean, I those those neoliberals, I don't really like those very much. When I talk about liberals, I'm talking about immigrants and
Yeah,
those.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, yeah.
I'm from New York. It's
I
like a place. It's a town of immigrants. That's
I
there was the Jews, the
I call them
Italians.
unicorns nowadays because occasionally I'll run across an author such as yourself or something like that that has the experience and recognizes themselves as, I guess you could call it a classic liberal now, and you don't really
I
see
didn't
that
hear what you
anymore.
said.
Oh,
You
He's
froze
freezing.
up.
He's freezing again.
Yeah, man, you better upgrade that. You better upgrade that redneck
TV.
kind of
You
TV
better
stuff
upgrade the
down there,
TV.
man. Yeah,
I know
man.
I'm having some TV
This is
issues tonight.
terrible.
I've
I thought
never had
Georgia was
this
a
much
modern
trouble.
place.
Yeah, I usually don't have this much trouble, so I do
Anyhow,
apologize.
You gotta make sure you turn it to channel 3.
but your signal is invading Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Brooklyn is rejecting your signal.
Yeah, you gotta turn it to channel 3.
And channel 3, that's right.
That's right? You had to turn it to channel 3 before. Yeah.
Everything in channel 3. Yeah, that's
Yep.
a thing of the past.
Yeah. Yep.
That's a good one, man. I haven't thought of that for a long time.
Yeah.
These things they're very important, and all of a sudden they're not important at all.
I showed my age, man. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the perfect age. Channel 3. I forgot
man.
that completely. But you see, the thing about it, like about the Bill Cooper book, just to get back to this ostensible topic that we're supposed to be talking about. That book talking about liberals. I don't think that. I mean, to me, Bill Cooper is an interesting person, and he had a lot of interesting ideas, and his story was perfect. He has a great story for somebody like myself to tell his story, because I feel that I don't have a political agenda. I'm a journalist, I'm really right. I know this is probably, a nightmare for some people, but I'm right down the middle, I mean, I don't think about like this kind of stuff about what it's going to live. I just thought that he was an interesting American person, and it turned out that I was a little bit ahead of the curve on that in a way. But I mean, most of the stuff that I write, all my buddies would read it, but very few of them read that Bill Cooper book because they thought, because it has the word conspiracy on the cover, that it was some kind of Trump book. And I would say, you know me for 30 years. Do you think I'm going to write a book that's going to be like, complimentary to Donald Trump or something like that? Or like somehow my mind has been, I'm trying to look at this from the point of view of every side that you can think of, because it's an interesting topic and it's something that people are very concerned about. And I still never got my buddies to read it, because they were liberals. You know, I mean, they
It's
bought into this
it,
whole thing. You know, this
it's
kind of like
frustrating.
this
It really
upside.
is.
You know,
It's frustrating that, people they will take a book at face value and look at it like just read the cover and
well,
not even bother. They're so like hard set on their political views that they will look at the cover of a book like that and go, I'm not
these are
going to
people
read
who have
that
been
just
reading my
because of the
stuff for
cover.
years too. I mean, I feel like, they already. I mean, we're buddies. We hang out. We go have a beer. I mean, you know what I'm like. I'm not going to write that book. I'm certainly not going to write the opposite book. I'm going to write the book of like what I find when I go out there. But I spent a lot of time working on it. I mean, I went out to Arizona where the guy lived for at least a total of 6 months. I mean, it was there all the time. I didn't find it all out from the internet or something like that, because I'm taught to go do your actual reporting. So, don't, the internet stuff, I look at that just to see, well, the internet is saying this about that. So therefore it's like you go interview 15 people, right? And to me, the internet was like one person. I mean, they were saying the same thing. It was like, I could have an interview with somebody else who'd say something completely different. And then I say, well, I read that, blah, blah, blah. And they would say, well, that's not true. Something like that, or that is true. But it was one of the things that's really a problem is that people don't even go out. They don't go out of their house to try to find out what's going on. They stay home. They never make a phone call, and, it's just all whatever. It's all hearsay. It's like everything you read on the internet is hearsay because it's like to you didn't find it out for yourself. Like Bill Cooper's famous thing was do your own research, do your own research, but that's his most famous quote probably outside of inventing the word sheeple. So like, but the people who follow him these days are just stuck in this kind of like, his mindset was made up in the late 1970s after he got out of the Vietnam War. So if you want to be on the cutting edge, you might want to pay attention to something that's happened in the past 50 years, not going back to what this guy, this particularly and actually not mentally stable individual had to say. I mean, he's a brilliant guy. I'm not knocking the guy. I wouldn't have written a whole book about him, if I didn't think that he was an interesting person and that he was brilliant about certain things. But if you're just going to adopt these views without bothering to check them out, you're just as stupid as everybody else that you're thinking is stupid. So,
you had made mention about like the do your own research and stuff like that. That's the aspect of Bill Cooper that you're talking about is the aspect that I also, would view Bill in, and I do understand that there was times that he was definitely not all there. One of my biggest respectful moments, I think, for him was the way he eloquently would drag Alex Jones for being a sensationalist that's just out there, pushing fear porn to people on a constant basis. And like when
he was prophetic about that because Jones wasn't even really doing that at the time. He only did that later, but he warned people that this is the kind of person you're dealing with. Yeah, I mean, like Bill Cooper was a very smart guy, and he was a troubled person. There's no doubt about it, So I mean, but I've gotten so much hate mail about that book from people who are supposed to be Bill Cooper followers, I mean, I said, well, I mean, I paid a lot of attention to the guy, wrote a whole book about him, I mean, doesn't that cut me some slack? And they said, oh no, you're an agent of the CIA or something like that. I said, well, if I'm working for the CIA, where's my check? What am I doing this for? If I'm like, I have some other agenda. I mean, I did the book because I wanted to do the book.
And being a real journalist, because like you said, you cut down the middle. You're not trying to make your journalism about, you weren't trying to make your journalism about left or right, paradigms.
Well, no, I mean, I feel like the people there are going to tell you what the story. I mean, I spent a lot of time with that guy Doyle Shamley, who was Cooper's guy. He's the guy. He's the one that saved all those broadcasts, so people can listen to them and come up with all kinds of theories about him. He did that. Now he's an enemy because somehow I don't know. People always have to have a lot of enemies. You notice that? So like, so Doyle went from being the good guy to the bad guy just because he didn't agree with some people's opinions of this guy that he really dealt with every single day for quite a bit of time. I figured he's going to know, even just hanging around with him and looking into his face was enough, put me in a situation where I can understand that maybe some of the stuff he was saying was true or not true. But at least I took the trouble to go seek him out and find him, and we became friendly. He taught me how to shoot. He gave me Cooper's gun, which I can send you a picture of me firing it.
Nice.
I mean, so it was like all kinds of stuff and we became friendly. And then he came to visit me in my house in New York, and I showed him around, and I got him to say one thing about the gun thing, which I thought was pretty interesting. This guy's he's a marksman. He's a military gun instructor. He's a gun guy, and I'm a believer in the Second Amendment. So, it's not a problem for me, but I said, Doyle, man, living in New York and living in Arizona, two things, man, when it comes to a lot of different things, and guns are part of them. So he comes to visit me, and we go on the subway during the rush hour. And I said, and he was crushed up in there, it's like, sardine land, and I go like, hey, Doyle, what do you think if everybody in this car was packing? How would you like that? And he goes, well, I don't know about that. So I'm saying, well, I proved my fucking point because, everything is in its place, if I was a young guy and I was growing up and my dad gave me a gun when I was 6 years old, yeah, I would feel a certain way about it, but I grew up in New York City where this was not part of the deal. So, a lot of this kind of stuff is, people arguing about something that is not worth arguing about because you're not going to change anybody's mind about that kind of thing, but you do have to come to some kind of because you can't have all these people getting shot all the time. You can't say that that's okay. If you're a meaningful society, you can't be afraid when you go to the supermarket every time that some nut is going to shoot you. So I don't know how you solve it. It's not going to be by restricting guns because that's not going to work. So let's figure out something.
That's an impossibility.
Even if you really wanted to do that, you couldn't do it, right? So
yeah,
but you can't have a society with these mass shootings all the time, and I don't think I'm not somebody who believes that they don't really happen. I think they really do happen.
Oh, they do.
People die.
Come on,
and this business about. Everybody's bitching about Alex Jones, right? I bitch about Alex Jones, blah, blah, blah. So, but then I meet these people. So, they're really railroading him on this Sandy Hook stuff. And I said, well, look, I believe in his First Amendment rights, and I don't feel that he should be getting this I'm kind of mixed about this, but you got to admit that he definitely was a rabble rouser about this kind of stuff. All you have to do is listen to it. So, you can't defend him. He shouldn't be convicted because he was exercising his First Amendment rights. I don't believe that, but I do believe that, there's such a thing as loose lips, man. You gotta be smart.
What he did as far as speaking out about the actual Sandy Hook incident was okay to a point.
Well, when he's telling people this crisis actor thing is not okay.
Yeah. What he did as far as releasing the victims' phone numbers and addresses,
that's not okay.
That is not okay.
Well, for somebody who's supposed to be like Joe Libertarian and privacy and all that kind of stuff, you don't give out people's telephone numbers. Especially when you know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. It's not like a big surprise that these people went to those people's houses and bothered them after their kid got killed. It's a nightmare. They
harassed every single victim of this Sandy Hook incident. All the parents that lost kids, they got harassed. Well, speaking out about the inconsistencies in the whole incident, can be seen as okay. That can be that's acceptable, but going as far as bringing
It's okay.
Bringing the families into
It's
that,
bad.
man, you took it too far.
Well, he took it too far, and he's like the only one like him, so he's getting all the, he got all the success, and now he's getting all the disaster, So,
Yeah.
but one of the things that Cooper felt about him was, because Alice Jones went to school on Bill Cooper, he used to listen to his broadcasts. His parents would tell him when he was growing up in Austin, Texas, he'd be listening to those broadcasts, and his parents, like my parents used to scream at me for listening to, Murray the K was playing all these kind of rock and roll records back in the 1954 or something like that. Go to bed. So that's what it was like, because he was sitting there listening to Bill Cooper. So then when he finally got old enough to actually talk to Bill Cooper, this was a big deal for Alex Jones. And in fact, Alex Jones, and you got to give him credit for this, when Bill Cooper got shot, it's in that book that I wrote. When Bill Cooper got shot, nobody paid any attention to it at all. Zero. No, it was just some nut that got shot, and he didn't get shot by the FBI or any of this stuff that people believe. So, but Alex Jones took the trouble to find out about, he called that very night, and talked to a bunch of people that were actually on the scene. He actually, for one night, he actually did his job as a reporter. He found out what happened, or he was trying to find out what happened. So, I give him points for that, but it's a difficult thing, man. When this stuff, like, but, I can't remember her name now, but when she said it's entertainment, there's entertainment and there's entertainment, but I mean, you see I'm a patriotic American. I like to see the country not fall apart because of this arguing and constant shit all the time. I go to Kentucky, which is, I hate to mention, a pretty right-wing state, right? So I have a lot of friends there. I like the people, because once you meet the people, they're fine. If you just listen to them, listen to what they're supposed to be like, then yeah, okay, I hate those people, which is just fucking awful.
Kentucky. I'm not originally from Kentucky. I'm a northerner. I'm a Yankee. I'm a Yankee by birth.
You're a Yankee by birth.
I'm a northerner.
Like far,
Central Kentucky.
I had a lot of good friends in Owensboro for strange reasons.
That's not too far. I was born and raised in northern Illinois, but I made my home in many different places due to the just west of Chicago.
Just west.
Due to the military, I've lived in a lot of places, but you were in
the military?
Yeah. And, I retired out here in Kentucky, and I just stayed. It wasn't
it's a beautiful place.
Not too bad. It really isn't. You just got to get away. You got to get away from the city. You got to get away from Louisville and Lexington. Out in the rural Kentucky, it's really not that bad. It's really quiet. It really is.
And that's like me, actually, I was born on an Air Force base and spent the first 10 years of my life moving state to state, country to country with my dad and the military. And then my mom, after the divorce, my mom settled down here and stuff. And I've traveled the world quite a bit more since then. And I just decided to settle down here because, kind of like he's saying, out here in the middle of nowhere, like where I am, like it's pretty nice. There's still that kind of sense of community, and
that's great.
Not the hustle and bustle of Atlanta that I avoid with every ounce of my energy. And
Atlanta's a nightmare.
I've driven.
I've
driven down
Atlanta. I mean, New York is a breeze compared to that.
Man, let me tell you, I can personally vouch for this numerous times because I've driven down to actually meet with Jimmy a few times. We hung out. We've done canoe trips on the river. Yeah, our families have met. This is one of those things where, it started off as, getting the truth out together. And we've built a friendship, not only online, but we've met up in person and become really good friends, and Atlanta is an absolute nightmare. driving through Atlanta. I bit it and just like drove through Atlanta to get to his place. I was like, you know what? I'm not going around it because I want to get there. Man, when I got into that traffic, it's one of those things where hindsight is just like, I should have taken the extra hour to drive around.
Well, you understand that a place where a lot of people live, there are going to be a lot of cars, but I mean, Atlanta somehow is extraordinary.
Well, and your option of going around it is what they call the perimeter. And I'm gonna tell you right now that the perimeter sits just as still as the main interstate through Atlanta. Like I used to think that was the way. See, I drive a truck. I deliver appliances and stuff. So I drive a truck for a living, and I am known as being a back road bandit because I am not about to sit still on the interstate when I'm trying to get these appliances done before the day's over with.
So you actually deliver like refrigerators and shit?
I do. I care.
That's a hard job. You must be a young, strong guy, man.
I'm in my late 30s, and
that's good. 30s is good.
It's easier to me now than it was, 10 years ago when I was doing it for apartment complexes. Now I just do it for rich people, and the only downside is that it's ridiculous size refrigerators, and I'll send Bandit here. I send Bandit here.
Being in those Sub-Zeros, huh?
Yeah. I'll send Bandit here messages. And I'll be like, I'm about to take this up 13 stairs. This fridge weighs 538 pounds, and I'm 150 pounds soaking wet and 5'6". And this fridge towers over me, and I've got to get it up 13 stairs just to get it to the house.
That's a nightmare. I mean, one time we lived in a 5th floor walk up in a tenement building. I don't know if you really understand what I'm talking about.
I do. I do.
It's had 3 kids, We had to move to Brooklyn. But so it was like, if you got down, and one time we decided we're going to get a piano, right? We got this piano. It was like half the people I knew. It was impossible, man, trying to get it up there. It was like but the thing about living in New York, which is kind of interesting, is that like, I don't have to really go that many places because all I have to do is go a couple of subway stops and I'm in China or India or something like that, because these people have such large communities of people that they're able to more or less they can live their lives, without ever speaking anything but Hindi. It's a cool thing.
That would be one of the trade-off. That would be one of the cool things. That would be a trade-off to like the polar opposite of living here in rural Kentucky or any rural area of a state.
Yeah,
would be the cultural diversity of living in a large metro area that you would get to experience on a day-to-day level. I don't have to deal with traffic. I don't have to deal with any of that nonsense. But I don't get like.
Well,
diversity of like a large city.
I mean, I was born here and I grew up here, so I'm used to it. To me, it's not this overwhelming, nightmarish kind of like, I don't know what's going on here. I was a cab driver. I drove a truck. I had all kinds of different kinds of jobs, and I grew up in New York City public school. So, to me, it's not that mysterious, and a lot of people are afraid of it because it's so big. I mean, it's really huge, man.
And see, now I will say, like, Bandit, the difference in your rule and my rule is, like, rule out here, there is a lot of cultural differences, like within feet of you. Like Georgia is a lot more of a mixed state than people realize. Like, people's always first thought is like, oh, that's Georgia, it must be racist. And I'm just like, quite the opposite. Like, I've seen places in northern states that I've visited and stuff that make this place look, eagerly friendly, and it's just been like certain towns and stuff like that, like it's traveling about and stuff my way and whatnot. Colorado's awfully interesting in the way that they treat people up there. Like you wouldn't think that Colorado is as racially charged as it is.
Yeah, it is. Actually, my son lives there. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's just wild to think that a place like that is racially charged as it is. And but you got places down here, man. Like it's not that big of a big of an ordeal here. Everybody from Georgia, and I still live in a place where when the car comes down your road, because there's not that many people coming down that road, you throw your hand up and wave. That's
Yeah.
just common courtesy and stuff like that. You might not know the name of the fella you run into at the gas station every morning beside the coffee machine, but you hold conversation with them every
Yeah.
single
Well,
morning.
that's a really wonderful thing. That's great. It
And
really is.
I
And
think
then,
that's
so Georgia, where do you live in Georgia? How far is it from where?
I tell everybody it's the middle of nowhere. I'm 40, I'm 40, 45. If there's no traffic, you can get to Atlanta in 45 minutes because it's
Oh,
45 miles straight up 19. But on a regular try, it's probably going to take you an hour and a half. But then
so you live south of Atlanta,
I'm closer now to Macon than I've ever been in my life. Like,
the home of Otis Redding
yeah, and the Doobie Brothers.
and the Doobie Brothers. Yes.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't know I didn't know Michael McDonald is from there. No,
He
right?
there
Yeah, he is.
there's a few of the guys from there's this area of Georgia is a pretty hotbed for things from wrestlers to football players to musicians and stuff. Actually, the high school up the road from me has produced more NFL superstars than any high school in the nation.
Really, well, Georgia is like a machine, a football team. The university football team just
Oh
ran over
yeah.
these guys.
Oh yeah,
But
UGA did it past couple of years. Good for them. I don't
good,
keep up
good
with
for
it too
them.
much, but it's nice to hear that the state's doing good with it, stuff like that. That's
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, I think it. Yeah, I mean, I love it over by the whatever that part near the coast is really nice.
oh, our
That's really
now
the place I'm
one of
mostly familiar with. You know.
one of our other co-hosts, Neptune, that unfortunately couldn't be here this evening. He's also down here in the state with me, and he's down there close to the coast near Savannah and stuff like that. Like
Yeah,
that's
Savannah's nice. I mean, I like places like, those islands over there, Edisto and all kinds of
yeah.
cool stuff. Yeah.
Did you ever see the Mustang Island when you were down here?
I don't think so.
There's an entire island down there near Tybee Island that is full of wild Mustangs.
Oh, wow. That's intense.
And
I'd love to see that.
you can
Yeah,
go out, you
I'm
can
gonna
take a
check that
ferry and
out.
go out and camp and
You
everything.
just drive down 95 and then you can go right over there.
Yeah, you can take the ferry over there, and it doesn't cost anything to camp overnight if you feel like it too. And I've done it a few times, and the horses just chilling right there with you, even though they're technically unbroken and such.
That's cool. So like I got about another 15 minutes. If you guys want to actually talk about the conspiracy stuff. I'm having
No, man, it's been a good time so far. Not that we
No, I
we
mean, I don't
touched
know. I
on
mean,
good
I've
stuff.
never been on your show before. I mean, sometimes I really want to
We
talk
go all
about.
over the place. That's the joy about this show. We like
I
this
mean,
multi-dialect
every
convo.
once in a while, I'm on coast to coast every once in a while, and they've got the same questions that they asked me the last time. And you have to answer them.
And we have sometimes, actually a majority of the time, we have we come on with the full intention of sticking to, like, we're going to talk about this subject and we're going to stay with it the whole time. I think is this episode 100 and 152, 153, something
This
like
is
that?
152.
All the episodes we've done, I think we have stuck to the, scripted, like what we're going to talk about. I think less than 5 times, 4 times, 3 times, something like
You
that.
never really know what the guest is going to bring, So
Yeah.
if I was selling something, which I'm not, I mean, like if it was 2 years ago, I'd be pushing my book, but I mean, like I said, well, you got to buy this, blah, blah, blah. I got to look at my website and this and that, but I mean, I'm not in that mode at the moment, but I mean,
we get guests on here if you decide to come back. I mean, if we haven't thrown you so far off that, like, these guys are crazy, man, I'm not coming back.
No. It's just
they're all over the place.
Like
We'll stick to it.
That's fine. That's good. I'm okay with that. But, the thing is that, like, sometimes, you'll be on and, like, people, I mean, the Cooper thing, that's guys, there's a whole bunch of podcasts like, somewhat like yours, you know what I mean? And I've been on a bunch of them. And, Some of them are much more serious, and they're very interesting. Like, nailing down your position on this, so you could tell if a good guy or a bad guy.
Some of them want to be, some of them want to be little Alex Jones and have their version of InfoWars, but we're not. We're not like that.
It's very chill. It's okay.
We one day we can be talking about, what ifs on World Trade Center building number 7. The next day it could be Bigfoot. The following day it could be movies. Like I have a friend that is a C-list actor and comedian, stand-up comedian. And he comes on here from time to time, and we just break down movies and just have a conversation on classic 80s movies and stuff.
That's cool. That's cool. I mean, well, it's a culture thing. I mean, if you're talking about culture, it's culture. Actually, one thing that I think is going to be, I'm going to make a prediction about conspiracy stuff. I believe that one of the things that it may not hit, but the chatbot thing, that's an interesting thing to watch. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
we talk about chatbots a little bit on here every now.
We've had experience.
People are going to wonder who's really writing that stuff. How the algorithm is set up to answer those kind of questions, because I think they're going to be, and you'll see. I may be completely wrong about this, which is
I think you're right.
When you're a conspiracy theorist, you have to be able to use this phrase. I may be completely wrong about this, but. It seems to me that the chatbots are going to be set up eventually as it becomes more, because if I'm Google, right, I got to be worried about chatbot, because Google searching has become a fucking joke, because you cannot find anything on Google unless you put in, you have to know all these, whatever that thing is, the optimization kind of thing. That kind of thing that's so advanced at Google that, if you find out, like, I got a broken leg, what should I do? You have to, you have to go through 5,000 ads before you get to anybody who's actually going to tell you something that you believe or might believe. So, because you've got all those advertisers on there. So now people are sick of that. They don't want to go on Google and look up stuff, which I'm not talking about you guys necessarily, but most people, that's what they do. So, if the chatbot turns out to be more effective at answering people's questions, if I'm Google, I'm going to be worried about that. And when the monster is worried, the monster does shit. So, like, you
could become self-aware.
Well, self-aware. It could be like, like, they don't want to lose market share.
Oh yeah,
that's what a lot of this stuff is about. So
money.
Yeah, it's about money. So, it's about money, and they've had everything their own way for a long time. Now here's this new piece of technology, just like from before they came along. Who thought about Google? I mean, who thought that you could search things on the internet? And so then really rapidly, it became the standard way you find out information, right? So, but there's a lot of flaws because they're pigs. They're pigs,
No, you're right.
They're pigs.
Absolutely 100% right.
They want to make more money, so they've taken that bond that they have with the internet user. That should be more like somewhat of a hippie type thing in a way, that kind of sharing information, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And they declare that they own this crap, and you have to.
They've hoarded it.
Yeah, they hoard it. They hoard it, and they won't
yeah.
let you and what they want to show you is something that you're going to spend money on. So, like, when I go on there, I'm not looking to. I'm not trying to buy something. I'm trying to find something out, and after a while, you get mad. So the chatbot is the first real thing to come up to challenge that model, and it's gonna. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's worth looking into. And there's going to be some movements behind the scenes that are going to be interesting to see what happens on a lot of different levels, because the chatbots are going to be programmed. I mean, it isn't the computer that's thinking that somebody's programming it, right? So what are they programming it to say? So
we played with one on an episode one night.
We did.
Luis, our co-host, he has access into the big one from the OpenAI chatbot or whatever. And I was just throwing kind of weird, silly questions at it, and it would answer some of them, and then it would answer some of them in a way that they were almost trying to be like snoops online. You know what I'm saying? Like trying to be like, oh, it's this, but it's not this, and it's not that, and
You can bet that it's trying to get your email address and your telephone number and everything like
right,
that.
Trying to get your info.
Send you more junk you don't want. So,
right.
like, you know, it's to me, one of the biggest conspiracy or like, you know, scandals of the world now is the way that people have just basically rolled over for corporate people. The corporations set the rules. They tell you, if you want to get in touch with a doctor, you've got to do this. You got to go through whatever the thing is, you know, and all that kind of stuff like that. Or you just get to see the doctor, you know, and this is all because of what's good for the corporation, whatever corporation it happens to be. So people have to fall in line because really everything is a monopoly in a way. So you don't really have much freedom of choice here. So, I mean, it's, you know, after all this bitching about socialism, now you got capitalism with no choice. So, and this is a problem. You know, yeah, you got a million kinds of coffee you can buy, but to me, that's not a choice. So,
it's the illusion of choice. You know, you've got,
yeah, exactly.
you're down to what, like, you know, two to three major oil companies. You've only got a handful of insurance companies and stuff like that. But
yeah, I saw that in your post. It's definitely true. I mean, as these things consolidate, which they inevitably will, because that's the way the economics of the situation is going to work, you know, then you're going to be, well, American freedom, socialism.
But yet you've got 23 flavors of ice cream, you know, like.
Yeah, how stupid can fucking people be? I mean, how that's the main question that really is the one that's bothering me at age 75, after being in this business for like 50 years. Why are people so fucking stupid? That's the one thing that is really bothering me, you know? So like, why do they fall for this stuff? How come they can't know that they're being tricked? You know, it's not necessarily that, well, I believe this about the World Trade Center. I believe that about the World Trade Center. I mean, I don't care what the fuck you believe about the World Trade Center. The fact that 3,000 people died is a scary thing, you know, that happened to be in my hometown. That I have a very strong feeling about that. So, you know, but the idea that people are just willing to go along with this kind of like programming of their lives, you know, because it's too much trouble to think about and doing it any other way. And like, you know, what's the biggest crack? I mean, convenience is the new crack, as far as I can see.
Yeah.
In other words, well, I don't have to do anything. All I have to do is put my credit card number in here and the thing is going to show up. Isn't that great? I don't have to go to a store. I don't have to like say, well, I want to get this or that, you know, maybe this is better. I don't even have to think about that. So like, you know, it's better. So that convenience is another one of these things that people rely on to control your life.
And
you know?
this goes back to something we were mentioning a little bit earlier. It seems the biggest supporters of these conveniences and these corporations are these neoliberals that have.
Well, they're the ones that are making it, but don't let the conservatives off the hook. I mean,
I'm not. I don't let them off the hook either.
And
believe me, I don't.
You know, I mean, like
we don't.
Business, like they're in business. I don't have anything against primitive capitalism, but I mean, corporate capital, what they call late stage capitalism, that is bad news.
Well, you know, I push a lot of book on here by author Gary Chartier called Markets Not Capitalism, and he's another one of what I call a unicorn. He is a classic liberal that, like yourself, can see past a lot of the nonsense and see past the corporatization and past all that stuff, and he's just like, hey, like, why, exactly like you said, why the fuck is everyone so stupid? And
they're comfortable.
And, you know, I think that you're right there too on like the conservatives. Like I try to remind people of this on a regular basis. You know, conservatives do a really good job at conserving tyranny, and that's about all they conserve anymore. And it's,
well, you know, they're conserving their own pocketbooks. I mean, they're great at that, you know, but, you know, or keeping people stupid. I mean, the conservatives are really very good at that.
all the above, you know. And
I mean, you know, it's, you see, the liberals, the so-called liberals, they're selling, you know, you should read a book. But, you know, but really. I mean, tell me, give me a book, I'll read it. But it's like, I don't know, man. I just feel that people should get together and they should understand that the human being is on top of the universe because we got this brain between our ears, and that's
to the
what
top of the food
you
chain.
want to believe in God or not believe in God, evolution. It's all the same thing. It all ends up in the same place. That the human brain is the one that's really calling the shot. So, and that is, and to see, that's one of the bitches I have about the moon landing thing is I think a lot of people think that people are too stupid to figure out how to go to the moon. And that's one of the reasons why they think people didn't go. Because really, once you're born, the devil takes over. Somehow then you're fair game for the devil. As long as you stay in your mother's womb, then the devil can't get in there somehow. But, I don't know. You hear a lot of crazy stuff and then, it just sort of seems like, why don't people really begin to sit down for 10 minutes and think about it? What's really likely? What's the best? What makes the most sense? Not like what the thing that you're most emotional about, what makes the most sense?
That's you hit the nose right there. I think too many people let their emotions dictate, the belief in it. And I do say that some of these slanted alternative medias, whether it be on the left side or the right side, do kind of help, fuel that. Like you were saying earlier, like the crazy stuff you heard coming out of Fox News and vice versa for somebody who would always watch Fox News and go to MSNBC. There's going to be
alternative universes.
There's going to be those alternative universes in there. And instead of actually trying to dig up the facts, people think emotionally and just start reacting. And, that's when you get, I make comments about this a lot, like online, social media in general, like Facebook and Twitter and all the typing, all the keyboard warriors that just go back and forth and name call and try to make the other one look stupider than the other one when they're both looking like complete morons.
Too much ego, man.
That's why I like that's it's a big reason that kind of pushed me towards a lot of the things that we do here and having conversations with such an array of people is my goal is I want to show everybody that we are the same. Like at the end of the day, yes, we might have a lot of things that we do differently, but there are so many things about us that are the same, down to the bottom line of a nice place to lay our head at night, the feeling of security and a full belly. I can't think of another person on this planet with us that wouldn't want those things. And I think that
I agree completely. I mean, really, I'm just, why do people want to stir everything up so much? I mean, it must be something about the human condition that makes people want to do that.
And not to mention the
honest disagreement. Let's talk it over, my friend.
but the constant bombardment, like you were saying, with like advertisement and stuff like that, like that's got to have a damage to the psyche in general. Like that great strong human brain, I think, has become damaged with a mixture of toxic chemicals and garbage being fed to us. You know what I'm saying?
We're trying our best to kill ourselves, but
yeah,
I don't think it's going to work. I think that people are going to, we're a very hardy species.
Yeah.
I mean,
we will survive. We will survive.
I mean, maybe not in our current condition, but we will survive. That's why. Like climate change, which I basically think is clearly happening, but the thing is, doesn't mean that it means it's bad for people. I mean, the earth is going to keep going, it's going to keep going around the sun, I mean, whether or not people are choking because of that stuff or not. I mean, and, life is going to continue. It's like every time you see, go to the desert, somehow there's a lot of flowers there, even though there's no water. So somehow life is going to continue to exist. So, it's just,
humans have been through the trenches in a lot of scenarios and we're still here.
200,000 years we've been here, depending on, I don't know, maybe you guys believe the world started 6,000 years ago. I hope not, but,
we've only been here, we've only been here, the human species has only been here in existence 0.004% of the existence of this planet. We are not going to be the reason this planet is destroyed. This planet will Earth will correct itself, and it will keep on spinning around the sun whether we're here or not. That's just how it's going to go.
I agree with it completely. But the thing is, what you got to do a little bit, if you're a publicly minded person, is you can't allow corporate or money interests to wreck people's lives just because it's good.
Absolutely.
You know, that can't be. And you cannot believe this kind of crapola that they hand you. I mean, most of this stuff about what I'm supposed to eat so I can live longer and all that stuff like that, you know, it's just it's more advertising, you know? I mean, you know, right. So, you know, my grandfather lived to be like, people live to be 100 years old. They continue to smoke. I mean, I don't think it's a good idea. I wouldn't do it, but I mean, it happens. So, anyhow, I gotta split, but it's been really a lot of fun talking.
Yeah.
And no, I appreciate you joining us tonight. And I do hope that you get to come back and join us another evening.
Yeah. Well, invite me. You saw that I responded right away. Yes, sir. Yes, I like something about your email. I get a lot of these kind of things.
Mine stuck out, didn't it?
I don't know what happened, but I mean, usually I got to the point where like, well,
don't worry, Jimmy gets that a lot.
I mean, I'm going to charge $50. You know, that's what I'm going to, you know, because I figure like, you know, if I'm going to sit on the telephone with these guys and they're basically trying to make me look bad, at least I should get paid, right? So, you know, but it was something about your email that made me say, oh yeah, sure, cool. You know, but
I have a different way of approaching things. I'm trying to be that different thing in the world that maybe shines a light towards some positive change in a good way.
Good, man. Keep doing it. Yeah. Keep wearing that hat and keep calling. You should definitely, you know, you might want to call up, you know, just read about somebody in a newspaper that said something interesting and just call them and see what happens. Yeah. You know, because it would change the show a lot, you know.
You know, I've talked to people in different states that were doing interesting things like that, like in Oklahoma. Yeah. You know, some friends that I've made because they were trying to fight against the DOT taking their land to build new highway and stuff, you know, and I just thought it was interesting, you know, with the things that they've had to say. And I've run across a bunch of other people with interesting stories like that. That's what I like the most.
Those local stories are always bad. I mean, the shit that's on the MSNBC and Fox News, these national stories, they're all bullshit.
Right.
The local stuff is the thing that matters.
It does.
Because that's what people actually know something about. They can tell you why they feel the way they feel, you know, and it makes sense. That's why, and you notice one thing, even in a place like New York City where they used to have like dozens of these local things. Like I used to work at the Village Voice. That's where I first got my start, right? Which was a wonderful paper if you want to look at it. I mean, it's just out of business now. But the thing is that the local issues that get people excited, that's where the real politics are. That's what real politics are. Yes. The other stuff is just politique. You know? Anyhow, I'll see you later.
Thank you again for joining us, and I hope you have a fantabulous evening. We'll talk soon.
Okay, man. Give my regards to your other host there, and hey, Bandit, next time I'm driving through Owensboro, I'll look for you, man.
Yeah, for sure, man. Absolutely.
You know that Johnny Depp is from Owensboro.
Yeah. Jim Varney.
Daryl Wartrap is from there.
Jim Varney, Ernest. Yeah. Is actually from, he's actually buried and he was born and raised in Lexington, Kentucky. Yeah. And George Clooney's actually a Kentucky native too. It really is one of those things where it's like you get these big names that are actually from these states and you're just like, I didn't know that.
Like Secretariat or something like that.
Look, everybody that's out there listening and watching, you know, I'm going to make sure that I have, you know, some links to get back to his work and stuff like that for Mark, so that you guys can check him out yourself on your free time.
All right. If people want to check out my Instagram thing, I have an Instagram account which I post stuff about this kind of stuff every once in a while. It's called the Pale Horse Rider Book.
I actually have it pulled up. That's originally the first place that I had I had found you at, and
I
you
was
do
I was
totally have
horrified to find out that my telephone number was on there. I never looked at it.
something. And you know, this he has posted some good stuff. I have thumbed through it, and I'll make sure that I have this link up there so that you guys can get back and
I
find
like
him
that
yourself.
picture. I like those picture of Clint Eastwood and Eli Wallach and and Lee Van Cleef. The good, the bad, the ugly.
Great movie. Great movie.
It's a great movie.
And
And
of course, you
it sums
guys,
everything up. See the good, the bad, and the ugly.
that's right. And of
There's
course, you guys know
more
you can
ugly.
find all of those links over at unconstitutionalawakening.com underneath this episode, as well as answering tonight's pirate trivia question underneath the same episode. If you guys, so that you guys have been doing that to get yourself some free Unconstitutional Awakening stickers, because we've got that going on. So, so tonight's pirate question is, where do pirates store their gym clothes? So you guys head on over there to this episode and answer the question underneath there, and I'll send you a pirate, or I'll send you one of our fantabulous stickers. So you guys have a fantastic evening. Thank you.